Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. So my name is Emily, this is my channel Books for Life, and thank you so much for being here. So I read 11 books during the month of June, which ended up being really surprising to me because June was a crazy month. I'm going to divide this up into two, and usually I do audiobooks versus physical books. This time I'm going to do a mix. I'm just going to do like the first 6 books that I read, and then I'll do like the last 5 or the first however I'm going to do it today. So it is going to be a mix of physical books and audiobooks. So I met all of my goals during the month. In the beginning of the month for my June TBR, I told you I was going to read Shout by Lori Halse Anderson, which I did, and I'll talk about this in just a moment. I also told you that I was going to read the next book in the Witcher series, which I'm going to talk about in my next video, so stay tuned for that. I also told you that I would read a book box book, and I did that as well, and it was actually one that I had no intention of picking up, so it was a nice surprising read for me. And then I also told you that I was going to be buddy reading King of Scars with Amanda from The Curly Reader, and I'll leave a link to her channel down below. I'm also going to be talking about that book in part 2, but I completed that one with her as well. So definitely watch the second part of this video. Before I begin, I just want to tell you, like, 5 out of 5, absolutely amazing, would recommend to anyone. 4 out of 5 is a solid, really good read. I did really enjoy this. 3 out of 5 is your average good read. Wasn't bad, wasn't great, but it was a solid read. 2 out of 5, and definitely a lot of flaws. Wouldn't really recommend. 1 out of 5, can't stand because of X, Y, and Z. But to start, the first physical book that I read this month was Shout by Lori Halse Anderson. I absolutely loved this. So this is Lori Halse Anderson's memoir. This is written in verse. I actually tagged a couple lines that really just stood out to me. Like, one of my favorite lines from this entire book is on page 160, and it says, "Too many grown-ups tell kids to follow their dreams, like that's going to get them somewhere. Auntie Lori says, follow your nightmares instead, because when you figure out what's eating you alive, you can slay it." I love that verse in here. I don't know, it really resonated with me. Overall, I truly love this book. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. I thought the beginning was a little bit slower. The beginning is more of her like life story and what she did as a little girl when she was raped, when she traveled abroad, and that was really interesting. I did enjoy that piece too. But parts 2 and parts 3 were definitely like the most impactful pieces. So part 2 is where she really shares with us the stories of other people who have been victims of sexual assault or rape, people who have felt lost and alone, and when she's traveled to different schools, her experiences there. And then part 3 was really the impact and the life of her parents and what they went through and how what they did impacted her, and it was like more of their story. So parts 2 and 3 were truly moving. Part 1 is really good too. I loved hearing her story, but 2 and 3 really had me hooked. So the book box book that I actually read this month was Turtles All the Way Down by John Green. I actually listened to the audio of this, but obviously I had the physical copy of it. I just randomly saw that it was there. All the other books that I was trying to get on audio were taken, so I was just putting holds on them, and I saw that this one was available, so I said, why not? And I actually enjoyed this more than I thought I would. I haven't had very good luck reading John Green. I just haven't really connected well with his stories, and I gave this one a 4 out of 5 stars. I actually really liked the OCD rep. I really liked the characters. I liked the concept of the story, but I really loved the OCD rep, like getting inside her head and what she was going through. I thought that was really amazing, like to actually experience it from somebody who does not deal with OCD. Like, I don't know, I thought that was an amazing representation to read about. I did, however, feel like the plot was a little lacking. I felt like the point of the story was the OCD rep and her life living with this, not so much the mystery of where the man went. So you follow this girl named Aza, and she is living with OCD. But she has these thought spirals that really suck her down, and she can't get out of them, and so she's really afraid of like dying from bacteria. And so she has like this cut on her finger that she has to clean all the time, and she is really, really afraid of these bacteria that's in your belly that can make you sick if it goes bad, I guess. I don't fully know all the details with it, and it's been a while, so I can't remember exactly what it's called. But anyway, her relationships suffer, and she's not always a very good friend, even though she tries to be, because she is dealing with this, and it's emotionally and mentally taxing to be dealing with her OCD. Anyway, this multi-billionaire ends up missing, and her friend wants her to help solve the mystery of where he went, because it's like $100,000 reward. So there is like that piece of the plot to it, but I don't really think that is the focus. And so because I felt like there wasn't much of a plot to this story, I did only give this 4 out of 5 stars. But hey, I actually really liked that. I thought that was a pretty good rating for this, for a John Green book, from me anyway. So after reading Shout by Laurie Halse Anderson, I really wanted to read another book by her, and I happen to have The Impossible Knife of Memory in my classroom library, and I've never gotten around to reading it. So I thought, you know what the hell? Why not read this? I now know all of this information about her life, so let's read this and see what it's about. So this is actually about a teenage girl who is living with her father, and her father is suffering from PTSD. He was in Vietnam and he hasn't been the same, and so she is dealing with him. He really can't keep a job. He is not stable. In her life, he was a truck driver, and she rode around with him every place he went, and he homeschooled her. And it's like her senior year, and he wants her to have like a normal life, and so he's like settled down in his mother's old house, and she's like going to school for the first time, so she's transitioning to a new world that she has never experienced. And now her father like can't keep a job, and things are just bad. So it is that story. And you find out how this was inspired by some of the things that Laurie Halse Anderson actually went through, because her father suffered from PTSD. So it was really interesting to see the connections from this to Shout once I read them back to back. So I did give this a 3 out of 5 stars, or maybe it was 3.5 out of 5. I thought the ending was corny. I thought it could have been a little bit better than it was, but it was a good ending. It was just a very corny ending. I liked the guidance counselor representation, because I feel like so many times in YA books, they like make teachers and guidance counselors look like idiots and complete assholes, and that just makes me really upset, because like who promotes your books more than like teachers? Like, we promote the love of reading, and obviously parents do too, but like teachers are always like, read this, read this. So to give teachers a shitty portrayal in books like just really irritates me. So I liked that they had a really great guidance counselor. They had like kind of a shitty teacher, I believe, in this one too. But the guidance counselor representation was really great. She did not give up on her. The guidance counselor was kept like pushing her to like figure out like, hey, you're gonna go to college, you're gonna do this. Why are you absent? Like, come on, you gotta get your shit together. So I really did like that. I thought that the PTSD representation was done really well. Although I did think Haley, the main character, was really judgmental. Like, she was kind of an asshole. So I thought that was interesting, especially somebody who is coming from the life that she's coming from. Like, she's so quick to judge others, even though she has all of these things going on in her life. She's like unwilling to see that other people have baggage in their life too. Like, she's just so quick to like just write people off. And I don't know, I thought that was an interesting take for her to have. But I did like this. I think I gave it 3.5, maybe I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. It was a good read. So the next 2 books I'm going to talk about were also audiobooks. I finally read, and then I watched the movie, Simon versus the Homo Sapiens Agenda. I loved this book. I could not get over how much I loved this book. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. I was able to guess early on who Blue was. I felt like there was a moment early on in the story that kind of like gave it away, and I was like, ooh, this is Blue. This is definitely Blue. And then from that point on, I'm like, oh, yep, definitely, absolutely, and I got that. So that was like a little bit of a disappointment that there really wasn't much anticipation. I mean, at times I like second guessed myself, but like no, this is definitely him. But I really did love this. I love that there was like a happy portrayal of parents, like the parents were accepting, and that's the way that, you know, it should be. So I was happy to see that this was a happy coming out story. Like, don't get me wrong, there was like some shit that went wrong because some of his friends were jerks, but it was a really great story. I loved the characters. And then I thought the movie adaptation was done really well too. They made some changes that I'm like, why did you have to make those changes? But they did, because they're a movie and that's what they do. But I really enjoyed this and the movie. I gave Simon versus the Homo Sapiens Agenda 5 out of 5 stars. And then the last audiobook that I listened to was The Proposal by Jasmine or Jasmine Guillory. I'm not sure. I I liked pieces of this. I loved the main character's friends. The main character, and I can't even think of her name, had some really awesome friends, and there was a lot of diversity in this, which I loved. I don't know, I felt like the dialogue was so forced. Like, for example, there was this one point where the sister and brother are talking, and they are really, really close siblings. He's like, oh, you know, my friend Alex, I don't think that's his name, but like, my friend Alex is engaged. And she's like, oh, well, if you had told me 5 years ago that your friend Alex would be engaged, I wouldn't believe you. Oh, I know, I can't believe my friend Alex is engaged. Like, the author kept doing things like that. Like, that's not how we would talk. Like, if I was to go up to my brother and I'd be like, oh my God, Megan's engaged, I wouldn't have to say, oh, you know, my friend Megan, she's engaged. Oh, your friend Megan, she's engaged. Like, that's not how we would talk. So I just felt like there were so many circumstances where it just seemed so forced. It just wasn't really, I don't know, just wasn't done well there. I did like the story overall. I thought there was like a lot of like feminine empowerment, which I thought was really important. You know, I loved like how she turned him down right away in the beginning of the story. I loved that. Like, so there were definitely pieces of the story that I liked, but overall I felt like the dialogue really lacked. I felt like the writing wasn't as good as it could have been. There were some opportunities that were missed. I've read a lot of the books on Reese Witherspoon's like list. Whatever that list, like her Sunshine Club, I can't remember what the hell it's called, but like that list, I read a lot of those books, and I just felt like this one didn't match the caliber of other books that were on that list. So I was surprised to see this one there. It just, I don't know, because I've read so many of her other books that she's recommended, I just thought that this one was a bit of a letdown. I did give it 3 out of 5 stars. It was an okay average read. Definitely not my favorite romance. I really wasn't even invested in them. Like, as a couple, I thought they were okay. It was just only okay. So it's not one that I'm gonna like scream from the rooftops and recommend like I have in Christina Lauren. So those are the first few books that I read during the month of June. If you read any of the same books, let me know down below. What did you read this month? If you liked this video, please give a thumbs up, and I'll be back with part 2 pretty soon, so stay tuned for that. As always, keep reading.